Let's talk about the size of the new Toyota Prius. Now, first of all, obviously you can see I'm not in a Toyota Prius. I'm in a Jeep Wrangler, but it's the perfect time to talk about the size of the Prius because I just got out of the Prius, I ran an errand, and I jumped in the Jeep to go do something else. So I'm fresh out of the Prius, and it kind of gives me that perspective or feel for what it's like as compared to being in something else. In this case, the Jeep Wrangler. Now, it may not be an overly fair comparison because the Jeep Wrangler is kind of like a square with glass windows on wheels, right? I mean, there are big windows all over the place, so it gives you that bigger feel inside. Although, I would argue that the Prius probably has a little bit more room than this Jeep Wrangler has, because the back seat area, if I actually had seats in here, are horrible. And there's no two doors. This is, or two extra doors. This is a two-door, so I don't have the two extra doors in the back where the Prius does. So there have been some complaints, I guess, that I've gotten on the channel or heard on the channel about the size comparison between the outgoing Toyota Prius and the current new generation, and that Toyota shrunk it a little bit. They made it a little bit smaller inside. The ceiling or roof area is a little bit lower, and volume-wise, it's just smaller. The trunk area, all that stuff. Oh, and the missing window across the back. A lot of people don't like that that's no longer there. I guess, and I'm not overly familiar with the previous Prius myself, but it had a window across the back and the hatch area that you could see out of. We obviously don't have that in the new Prius. From a visibility standpoint, I mean, comparing it to what I have now, and with no back seats in here to have headrests and things in the way, it is less than what's in here. Again, I'm not trying to compare this to a Jeep Wrangler, just the overall feel of being in a different vehicle. Obviously, it's less. There are more blind spots in that car. One of the big complaints that I hear about is the A-pillar right up here in the front. For me, it's not so bad for one reason, and that is Toyota gave us a window up there. There's that little kind of triangular window that gives you a view kind of beyond that A-pillar area, right outside of the front. That, to me, kind of gives you the perception, I think, that you have more visibility than you really do. And it really helps, I think. I haven't really noticed any big problems myself. I have had a couple of comments on the channel, somebody who's gotten one and complained about the lack of visibility, the poor visibility, and that you need to have that digital rear view mirror so you can see everything. And I'm like, I rarely use that mirror myself. If I turn it on once a month, that's probably way more than normal, you know? So I would disagree with that. It is a small car, and I think you have to kind of look at it for what it is, right? It's kind of like riding around in a Jeep Wrangler and making any comparisons to the Prius. I mean, the Prius is a different type vehicle, and if you're trying to look at the Prius as something else that maybe has better or more visibility, then you probably bought the wrong vehicle. I mean, you're kind of comparing it to something that it's not. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing with this new Prius. They're comparing it to maybe a mid-size sedan, or these days, maybe even an SUV. Well, obviously, it's going to be different because it is different. Sound. I have to mention the sound while I'm in here because that's something that I have noticed about the new Prius. It is louder. You do get a lot more feedback, I guess, or road noise from that car. And I don't know if it's the tire setup that Toyota went with or what, but you definitely do hear more. It's not a problem for me. I mean, if it gets to bug me, then I guess I just turn the radio on. You'd hear that over any kind of road noise. But it is a complaint that I'm hearing from a lot of people. And I think beyond just potentially the wrong tires for the car, I think it also has something to do with weight reduction. You know, Toyota, I'm sure, did not put a lot of extra insulation for sound deadening into the new Prius. And they did that intentionally. They did it so that you wouldn't have all the extra weight to cut back on fuel economy. I mean, let's not forget, and I often do, that the Toyota Prius is really designed to be a fuel sipper. I mean, it is, in my case, a hybrid. I've got, well, in both cases, it's not a plug-in hybrid, but it's the hybrid version, as is the Prime, but it's the plug-in version. So it is designed to be that way, and surely in testing and research and development, Toyota is aware of this. It's not like it's some big revelation that the Prius is going to be louder. I think you probably should expect that with any hybrid small type car. Now, I could be wrong, so if you have experience in other hybrid vehicles, particularly smaller hybrid vehicles, not luxury SUVs or anything, I'd be curious to know. I will say I have ridden in the new Tesla, or Tesla, as some people like to call it, and it is much quieter. Of course, it's an all-electric plug-in vehicle, so it's kind of a different animal, but nonetheless, it's still designed to be a fuel sipper, in this case, electric fuel, not gasoline, but it is much quieter than the Prius. So I don't know if maybe Toyota missed the boat there a little bit, and maybe they should have tried to do something to make it a little bit quieter than it is. But again, it's not a real big problem for me. I don't really have any issues with it when it comes to something like that. Now, the last thing that I want to compare, what I've noted, and again, it is a small car, so it should be pretty darn quick. It's not hauling around a whole lot of weight, except for that battery under the back seat there. But it is quick. It's 0 to 60 in like, what, 7 seconds or slightly less. That's pretty darn good for a Prius. You know, it used to be, what, 12, 13 seconds, something like that. And I'm not trying to say that it's some kind of drag car or race car. Well, by the way, if you're wondering, does this guy even have a Prius? You can see it. It's sitting right back there, right behind the Toyota Tacoma there. But anyway, it is pretty darn quick. I mean, acceleration in it is awesome, and you would expect it to be. I mean, it does run, in my case, it's all-wheel drive, so I have 2 electric motors in there, and it really takes off. Is it equivalent to this being the Wrangler? I would say so, if not probably even a little bit faster. And who would have said that in the past, unless you were talking about a fully electric car like a Tesla or something? So they did a fantastic job there, and it is something I notice when I jump out of the Prius and jump into something else, either this or the Tacoma sitting out there. It's a blast to drive. I love it. And again, it's always a struggle. Which vehicle am I going to take? Am I going to take the Jeep? Am I going to take the Tacoma? Am I going to take the Prius? Just depends on, I guess, the mood of the day. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, talk about that for a minute. Is the Toyota Prius too small? I don't think so. Don't get into it expecting it to have the space and room of a full-size, Toyota Tundra, or a big SUV, a Sequoia or 4Runner or something, because if you do, then you bought the wrong vehicle. But I think it's just fine for what it is. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've gotten one, the new Toyota Prius, or maybe you've been in one. What did you think of the size of it? Is it too small? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.